Good morning and welcome to everybody. I don't know if everybody who's participating is enjoying a morning or if there are people who have a very, very early night. Welcome to this event of the Transatlantic Innovation Week 2022. Today and in this event, we will talk about sustainability and green innovation and how sustainable startups from Hamburg for the world can make a difference. And for the introduction, let me say that please everybody, now this is for the audience, please everybody keep your microphones shut down so that our audio line keeps free and we don't have interrupting sounds. I go back to the topic. So we are talking about how sustainable startups from Hamburg can help the world for a more sustainable development. I think it is today clearer than ever. Across the Atlantic, we have to hold our shared values high and work together for a better world. And for a better world, which is not only a peaceful world, which is a topic for today, not this event, but today, but also a sustainable world in where future generations can enjoy the same that we are enjoying today. When we think about the problems that we face and the challenges, it is pretty clear that artificial intelligence can create powerful tools that help to better understand and often manage a great part of the complexity that we are dealing with. And in sustainability, we have a global development and we have global sustainable development goals. And to achieve those, I would like to quote President John F. Kennedy, who in another occasion once said, we want to achieve those goals, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because these goals will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because these goals are the ones that we are willing to accept, we are unwilling to postpone, and that we are intending to win. So we are not willing to postpone our goals for 2030 in the Sustainable Development Goals. And the participants of today represent the best of commitment and leadership for the cooperation and innovation towards this better and sustainable, peaceful future. I would like to briefly introduce the speakers of today. These are Stephen Monteiro of the General Consulate of the United States in Hamburg, who stepped in on short notice because Mark Maloney, the consul, unfortunately on short notice cannot participate in this meeting. I would also like to introduce Petra Vorsteher of the AI.STARTUP.HUB and kind of the mastermind of this event. She developed the idea with her team, and without her and of course the consulate, we wouldn't be here and hearing these interesting stories. Very important, the three startups. So there is Daniel Lücht of Nash Renewables, Mirko Schädelbauer of Apanion, and Friedrich Rantzau of Food21. What they are doing and what they are contributing to a better future, we will hear later. So I would first introduce once again, but with a few more words, Petra Vorsteher. She's not only representing the AI.STARTUP.HUB, she's also representing AI.HAMBURG. She's representing the AI Fund. She's the founder of AI Invest, and she's the co-founder of the Transatlantic AI Exchange. Petra, welcome to this meeting, and thank you for pushing us to this discussion.
Thank you so much, Gunnar. Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for participating. And of course, a big thank you to the consulates and the Embassy of the United States for this great initiative. I'm very happy that we are joined today by Mr. Stephen Monteiro from the US Consulate here in Hamburg. Artificial intelligence is a key technology that bears great opportunities for new business, the humankind, and the sustainable development. Transatlantic Exchange combines the best experts and ecosystems for AI, that is people, startups, finance, and markets. Especially startups have a transatlantic mindset to scale exponentially and successfully. The AI Startup Hub has a large international network and works with, among others, the German accelerator in San Francisco as a key element within its partner network.
Wonderful. Petra, we are seeing 3 startups today, and those were selected by your team. What can you tell us how you selected them and what they are doing who paved the way for a better future?
Yes, the AI Startup Hub is a great springboard for business success, internationalization, and transatlantic exchange. We are one of 4 hubs in Germany supported by the German government, who sees the importance of helping AI startups become successful and competitive. The startups in the program today have these 3 great things in common: an innovative approach for AI application, innovation and energy as drivers for the sustainable entrepreneurship, and a transatlantic mindset and business perspective.
Yeah, very, very good. Now, if we are talking a lot about the transatlantic cooperation here, and this is the time that we want to welcome again Stephen Monteiro. And Stephen Monteiro, he is kind of co-organizer with the consulate of this event, and they are bringing something also to the table. So, Stephen Monteiro, what do you have to tell us?
Sure thing. Thank you very much, Gunnar. Thank you very much, Petra. I very much appreciate you guys giving that great introduction, and for Petra also basically co-hosting or hosting this event. And I'm happy to talk to all of you today, dear participants. As was mentioned at the top of the call, I'm filling in for our consul, Mr. Mark Maloney, who was not able to attend today due to unforeseen illness. My name is Stephen Monteiro. I am the press specialist here at the U.S. Consulate General in Hamburg. And because I wasn't on the announced programming, I can give you a little bit more information about myself. While I am by trade a journalist, I too have some startup experience in my background, albeit very, very humble. I used to run the communications and marketing for a small firm called Blinkfire Analytics in Chicago. And I started there when there was 5 of us sitting around the table at a shared office space and trying to lift the business off the ground. And back then we were also using artificial intelligence for our product, which was essentially tracking media value across real-time videos and images on social media and on streaming platforms to monitor return on investment for sports advertisers and brands. But enough of that. We can move on to why we're actually here. As Gunnar and Petra have already mentioned, we are organizing this in conjunction with the AI Startup Hub within the framework of the Transatlantic Innovation Week. During this week, the U.S. Embassy and all of our consulates celebrate the cooperation between the United States and Germany across multiple industries and fields, from innovations in responsible foresting at our national parks to artificial intelligence that will expedite our shift to renewable energy sources. And I use these examples on purpose, as the theme for this year's Transatlantic Innovation Week is sustainability. Our motto is partnerships for our planet. As President Biden has said, to stave off the worst effects of climate change, we need a multinational approach. One country can't do it alone. And the partnership between Germany and the United States is crucial to this goal. We must not forget just how deep and robust the transatlantic relationship has been, is, and will remain. Our economic ties are the perfect example. Together, we've created more than 16 million jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. We jointly account for half of global purchasing power and for 1/3 of the global GDP. And we can take these deep ties and apply them to meet our sustainability goals. We must, because the planet is not waiting for us to adjust. Climate change has been a top priority of the Biden administration since day one, but we must not think of this transition as restrictions or regulations, but as an opportunity, creating high quality jobs for a more just, healthier, and a more sustainable society. Alleine schaffen wir das nicht, as they would say here in Germany. We're in this together. Artificial intelligence fits, of course, right into this. PwC estimates that AI alone will grow global GDP by 14% by 2030, an increase of 16 trillion US dollars. AI is an area that we here at the US Consulate in Hamburg have and will continue to focus on. And it is explicitly these technologies that may unleash the greatest potential we have in our pursuit of a renewable energy economy. What makes the Transatlantic Exchange so important for AI companies is not only that we can learn from each other, as we here in Hamburg have continued to witness through our partnerships with AI startup, the AI Startup Hub, AI for Hamburg, Petra, and so forth, but through these disruptive technologies also come the risk of them being misused. So to again quote President Biden, artificial intelligence should be used to lift people up, not to pin them down. We must stand up for the democratic values that makes it possible for us to accomplish any of this, pushing back against those who would monopolize and use these technologies to normalize repression. Through transatlantic dialogue, we can set the rules of the road, make the guidelines, define the algorithms that will ultimately decide how these technologies can be implemented. And we must ensure that our democratic values are etched into these codes from the very outset to shore up our future economic growth, but also to strengthen our democracies. The work of past generations has made the transatlantic relationship strong, and through it, we will be ready to overcome the challenges of the 21st century. And the largest of those is the protection of our planet. That's why we celebrate Transatlantic Innovation Week, to highlight initiatives and companies that are making a difference and looking for solutions to today's and tomorrow's problems. That's why I'm very excited for the presentations to follow and look forward to the future innovations coming out of the AI Startup Hub and, of course, Northern Germany. So with this, I give the word back to you, Gunnar. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Stephen. This has been very inspiring and motivational for, I think, all of us. And I couldn't agree more that we are in this together, that we are sharing the same belief in democracy, freedom, and fair use of technology for the best of all of us. I think what we are going to see now, the next three startups, and maybe the next one especially, are absolutely on the way that you have been asking us to go on. So the next one would be Daniel Lücht of Nash Renewables. And if you, like you said, renewable energies operating in the United States and using artificial intelligence, this is the field of Daniel Lücht with his new Renewables AI solutions. He creates with Nash Renewables AI solutions for increasingly volatile electricity markets on either side of the Atlantic and beyond. And this is especially important for renewable energies because they still have to fight for their place in the market. Now, what this means, I hope, Daniel, you can explain to me and us and the audience. Hello, Daniel Lücht.
Hello, hi Gunnar, and thanks for the introduction. I will try my best to give you, let's say, an idea of what we're doing and what we're here for. But I also have to say that the story is quite complicated. So if you want to learn more, I guess we need to find some more time for deeper dives. But jumping right in, there's obviously a massive introduction of more renewables towards us to actually change the way we produce electricity and also then consume it following that. And you can see here from 2020 to 2030, we will see at least a triple in installation of solar and renewable assets to somehow being the, let's say, the main contributors to our green electricity we want to use for electricity purposes or for other purposes, transferring that into green hydrogen storage, etc. And with that massive increase and more renewables to our energy systems, we will see that our energy markets actually will become much more volatile. I think you already may have seen that the latest happenings in the world driving volatility as well, but also renewables in the way they actually also have a very volatile production scheme. They are actually putting another stress level to our energy systems. And here, this is like a forecast showing Denmark, for example, where the very left column gives you an idea on how the past 5 years has been operating. So you can see this is actually price levels. So you can see around 10% of very low prices. This is actually when there was a lot of renewable already in the system. And you can see around 4% of very high, and in between it was somehow normally distributed. Moving forward now, pushing that into the future, we will see that we will actually have an excess of green energy, which will actually reduce the price level down to zero quite often. And then we have a lot of very expensive energy production schemes like gas-fired power plants, coal, etc., because they also obviously have to pay for all of the tax credits on top of this. So now moving into a much more binary system. And for this, I actually have an example here, which that actually means, and this is actually Hamburg, which was 4 weeks ago about. It was a very sunny day, which we don't have very often, to be honest, here in the north of Germany. But it was sunny and it was windy and it was a Sunday. And you can see obviously the demand isn't very high on Sundays, but in the combination of the two supply schemes from solar and wind, we've seen actually 9 hours following with zero or negative prices in the German electricity market, as a combination of low demand and very, very high renewable supply. So now taking this forward, there's obviously a problem which needs to be solved, and how do we actually ensure that renewable energy becomes much more contributed to baseload rather than to a lot of excess energy into all of the market, but also into our grid, because our grid will not be able to handle all of this. And besides that, we are actually now transitioning into a scheme where market is dictating the price points for what we are doing. And to be honest here, the gray is, let's say, the subsidy schemes. Maybe the colleagues here and the audience connected from Germany will heard the EEG, like the Erneuerbare Energie Umlage we have here in Germany, which is somehow providing a dedicated fixed tariff for everyone who's operating renewables. And the green is actually the markets which are very much market integrated. So where there's no dedicated support scheme on your, let's say, energy produced. And yes, it's the US being on the opposite side of what we're doing here. So it's actually very much a gray to a green. But we can see that more and more markets moving towards market integration. So seeing that Scandinavia is already more or less the same situation where the US is, the rest of Europe will follow that. And so it goes towards green, towards market integration. And it actually means that energy will be just dealt with like you're dealing with shares and trading it on the market. Now, taking these two models, very much the gray, we optimized a lot for volume. So because when you have maximum volume, maximum energy produced, and you always count this with a fixed return, this is obviously will give you the maximum, let's say, revenue or the maximum upside for your business case for your wind turbine deployed. But now if you match volatile solar radiation with volatile wind conditions, with volatile market, things become really, really complicated, right? Because all of a sudden, there's no fixture anymore. There's nothing which holds you to, let's say, at least you know that things might happen over the next 20 years or things might be fixed. So with all of this, what we actually see now as the markets operating on hourly basis, now we're moving away from a yearly averaged optimization stream into an hourly optimization stream, which I think by this you can already see this is a massive data problem because you need 20 years of forecasting data for wind, you need 20 years of forecasting data for solar radiation, you need 20 years of forecasting data for how that grid connection point in the market will operate, and then structure this all together and make sense out of it. So what we are doing, we're building up a software stack utilizing an ML and AI to actually be able to do this on an hourly resolution. But also, we are here to actually change the market behavior and moving away from an old KPI set into a very different, to actually bring and, let's say, configure wind turbine assets in the first place, which are able to be fully market integrated and leaving, let's say, the old paradigm behind. So we put quite a heavy topic in front of us, and we believe now technology is ready to actually overcome the shortcomings we had in the past to not being able to do so. And closing it with an example from the US, a Texan project, for example. You can see it here on the right-hand side. This is a site with fairly strong wind conditions, and the spot price average. So this is like the average market price you would see in that knot in Texas. And you can see different choices. Let's say a conventional choice targeting the KPI sets we're knowing as of now and the ones we are using. And the choices we create with our software stack applying. And you can see overall, we can actually increase the capture price, which is quite interesting. So all of a sudden that renewable asset will not behave as a standard renewable asset, but will rather behave, let's say, as a standard power plant, so to say, because you can actually utilize it also connected to the market. And maybe one more thing, which is quite interesting to put into consideration here as well, when we are able to define a production scheme of a renewable asset, which is contributing to higher prices in the market, it can also push out a lot of conventional power plants, because only when conventional power plants are producing, you actually are somehow displace carbon from the grid. If we would just generate more and more green energy when everyone is producing green energy, there's actually no conventional power plant longer in the grid. But what we're doing here, changing the production profile, we actually also are here to actually replace conventional power plants from the grid. And with that, we're having quite a good value proposition. So it's actually better for the investor, but it's also much, much better for reducing the carbon utilized for our energy demand and energy production. So that's what we do in a nutshell. I think I can talk about this for at least 3 hours, but I hope I was able to give you a bit of an idea of what we're doing, how we're doing this, and yes, yeah. So it's very happy for me to actually, sit here in Hamburg, but also looking into opportunities in the US. As we can see, US is amongst the markets which are actually the most advanced when it comes to market integration of renewable and power production.
Very, very good. Very interesting and a lot of detail. Daniel, may I try?
Sorry for that.
No. I think this is a totally fascinating case. May I try to give my impression about what you are doing there? And that is, when there's a lot of wind blowing, the prices go down because there's too much energy nobody uses in the market. Yeah. So what you do is you analyze the situation and you tell a wind production facility that maybe they should try to, have other peaks. And this might be when there's less wind.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This would be the first. And then the second would probably be that you build different plants that are optimized for different wind speeds.
And that's what we do, right? We take all of the learning from trading into the early stages before the wind turbine project has been deployed to the project. At the moment, we don't really do that because it was way too complicated to take all of the learning from operations into the early configuration stages. And that's why we have to actually change the resolution so much. Now, moving away from, at the moment, we are calculating 25 times 1 year. If, let's say, the span of the project is dedicated for 25 years, we're actually calculating 210,000 hourly bins in order to overcome that optimization loop, which is somehow you see the resolution is changing dramatically in the forecasting stage to actually include the behavior of that wind farm in the market into the pre-configuration stages of a wind turbine project.
And we have seen that the Transatlantic cooperation works here very well, because you told us that your system, your way of thinking works best in markets that already have a more volatile market approach. And you told us that you have a very good case in Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So also, to be honest, Germany is one of the strongest renewable energy markets already. And that's why also volatility in Germany is very, very high. However, our political system is supporting still the fact to actually have as it's a volume-based energy production. That's different in the US. That's also different in Scandinavia, where the market is determining the value of the energy, and not, let's say, a political system saying you will get a fixed return for every kilowatt hour produced. And the only problem is that if we now bring more and more wind to the electricity grid, they follow almost all the same power curves, so to say. So whenever they reach rated power output, we will come to the point that there's more than enough energy in the market, even more than enough to actually store it in batteries or utilize hydrolyzers for that to produce green energy, green hydrogen. There is a lot to do to make wind turbines more dedicated for base load capabilities rather than just overshooting when there's no demand. And that's what we have for.
That is very good. And I think Mirko will like that, because Mirko will be the next one that will show us solutions for the future. And this is about artificial intelligence producing reliable metrics of transport emission. Mirko Schädelbauer, he's the founder or co-founder of Apanion, and I would like to welcome him. He is developing data-driven AI products for the transport and logistics sector. With Ship Zero, he provides a decision-focused software as a solution, software as a service solution for reliable metrics of transport emissions. So, Mirko, please present us your company, and maybe initially you can tell us what your idea of, or what would be, in your perspective, first steps for achieving a more greener transportation.
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me here, and thanks for the introduction. Yeah, the first steps are quite obvious. Starting to do something would be kind of the first step, because at the moment, a lot of companies wait for other companies to do the first step, to then see if it works and how it works. And we are, of course, there to kind of give the data-driven approach to actually assist companies in on the way towards net zero transportation. Yeah. All right, and with that, yes, you already mentioned the actual company is Apanion Labs, but we focus on the topic of sustainable transportation. We're based in Hamburg and started with the product Ship Zero last year. And I will give a very brief introduction into why we do it, why we think it's crucial that someone does it, and what we are kind of all about. So why logistics? Maybe the first question. The one thing, of course, in Hamburg, logistics is huge, kind of the only major industry that is happening here. And the other thing is it's actually the only industry with still rising CO2 emissions. With the problem of the complexity of the logistics industry, there's no one silver bullet. You cannot say, all right, we use this technology now, and from then on are on a net zero track. This doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And not one party can kind of decarbonize on their own. It's always going to be a collaborative approach. And yeah, currently, more than ever, probably, we see the interdependencies of logistics. This is, for example, the energy imports of Germany. It's a bit older, but it probably didn't change too much since then. But imagine being someone who wants to import hydrogen now from another country than Russia, for example, the US, and try to do it on a net zero basis. There will probably not be a provider to do it, to ship it to Germany in the end. And of course, it makes it very difficult to decarbonize your supply chains. So if we zoom in a bit and be like one transport buyer, you know what is happening on your production side, and you know what is happening at your point of sale. But what happens in between, for example, if you produce something in Texas and bring it to Hamburg, you have basically no idea what is happening in between there. And for a long time, you didn't even care because your priority was that it arrives at some point in a good condition. But now decarbonization strategies start to kick in, regulation starts to be in place. Yeah, but still you depend on the one who actually transports the stuff. So you depend on your service providers to decarbonize because you do not own the assets. And you're not the one who can actually measure what happens in between. You're always dependent on the one who actually does the transports in between. So this is where our kind of data-driven approach comes in. We have built a platform for both the transport buyers and the transport operators. And the first step is always to kind of measure the shipment data. So we take the shipment data, calculate the emissions on a model basis to be compliant with all regulation. But the second step would then be, and that would be much better, to integrate the tracking data. So for example, AIS or telematics data from the operators, and then be able to match those data points in the middle to be able to then monitor and enable kind of an active reduction. Because at the moment, most fleets are still diesel-based, so around 95%. But this shifts, so we will have mixed fleets more and more, and then it gets actually very interesting which truck was operating which shipment, because this is something the transport buyer pays for, and they have to pay for the emissions in the end. So precise matching will be quite important in the near future. So for the transport buyers, this is all about visibility and insights, and actually get a toolbox for decarbonizing to be able to talk to the most important operators, because you usually have a fleet of operators. You have 10, 20, 50, 100 operators that carry things for you. And on the other side, for the operators, it's currently a pain because someone has to do this manually, so they can save a lot of time and actually derive some business value from it, because when you can offer this data integration or just automatic reports to your clients, that's always a big plus. And yeah, as we are talking data today, I would briefly dive into the potentials for the AI topic and where we use data science in the process. The first step within this shipment order data gathering, the data quality is usually the big pain point there. So we use machine learning topics for reliable geocoding and, for example, prediction of the modes. So if it went by air or by sea or by train or by truck. The second step, the calculation model, is very, very stable. So it has to be very stable to be auditable and has kind of clearly traceable methodology. The third step then, we call it kind of the climate action enabler, is all about the primary data integration. And there, this kind of order matching. So we have the trucks on the one side and the shipments on the other side, and matching those is a very algorithm-intensive process. And yeah, the fourth step, of course, is kind of identifying optimization potentials for our clients as well, because giving them the raw data is nice and a good first step, but then kind of pushing into the one direction, because every investment in green transportation is very capital intensive. So if you buy new trucks or vessels or airplanes, it's just a large investment sum, and you want to have it on a data basis and not based on gut feeling, pretty much. And this is unfortunately still how it usually works at the moment. And that's already what I wanted to show you. Could also talk about it for quite a few hours probably, but hope to be able to kind of give you brief insight, and then very open to talk afterwards in case there is some more discussion potential.
Well, thank you, Mirko Schädelbauer, for this very, very interesting speech and for the insights into your solution. I know I have many clients who are just, I know many people who are rolling their eyes when somebody tells them to find out about their ecology impact of their logistics. So I think you can deliver a very good solution. Before I ask any questions, I would like to give the first step to Petra Vorsteher and Stephen Monteiro, because maybe they have questions.
Actually, the last two examples are the perfect examples for a good startup. Seeing a problem and finding a unique solution that is scalable also internationally. And those are also the startups we are looking for the Startup Hub. And a little shout out to the audience here. If you happen to be a founder with a unique solution for a problem, please let us know. Go to our website and there is a form you can fill out. And maybe this would be something for you to participate in the next batch we are looking for. So, I mean, these were two great solutions, and especially with renewable energies being so prominent here in northern Germany, and also, of course, logistics, Hamburg, the port, etc. Those are close to my heart and good examples. And thanks so much for the great presentations also. And I learned again some more things.
Very, very good. Stephen, you have any questions to Mirko or a comment to make?
Well, I first and foremost, I appreciate all the shout outs to Texas. That was very good. I'm sure our Consul General, who is from Texas, would very much appreciate that. And nevertheless, yeah, I suppose a question to Mirko, because you're saying that you essentially are using data on both sides to track the carbon, let's say carbon footprint, then eventually of the logistics industry. So your client would then be the shipping companies themselves, or the producer?
Pretty much both. So our main customer is the one buying the transports. So it can be the one who produces the things. It's always the one who is reliable in the end. Whoever pays for the transport has to pay or will have to pay for the emissions. At the moment, it's kind of a shadow pricey thing, which is not optimal at all. But we will get there, that you will actually have to pay for it. Yeah, and the other part of the client base is obviously the ones who do the transport, because they are annoyed by now more and more approaches by their clients. Please give us your emission data. And they are like, we have no idea how that works. And it's not the core business, to be honest. So,
yeah, of course. Well, no, but then obviously then your product would create a great solution for everyone involved in that chain. Okay, but thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks.
So this is very good, and this is almost a transfer to the next startup that we are going to see. So I want to introduce Friedrich Rantzau of Food21. And just as we have seen before, information, making things transparent with artificial intelligence can lead us to better and more sustainable decision. And in the case of Friedrich Rantzau, he is enabling food retailers to spend more efficiently to consumer demand by providing optimized demand predictions that enable these retailers to reduce food waste and other inefficiencies. Friedrich, can you give us more insight so we can really understand what we are doing here and maybe adapt our action to waste less food?
Well, Food21 focuses on minimizing food waste and wants to increase and aims to increase sustainability in the food value chain. We at Food21 believe in a common change of society and more openness and transparency, more sustainability, and more social responsibility. And we want to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable food supply chain with a data and AI-driven technology approach. However, this is only part of the story, and you will see why in a moment. Just let's have a brief look at the major problem that food waste creates. 35% of food produced is either lost or wasted from farm to fork, and this all with regard to a growing world population, and especially, and I would like to also draw your attention on that fact, we know that due to the most recent conflicts that we face with regard to Russia and the Ukraine, also hunger will play an increasing role globally, unfortunately, I have to say. There's also another environmental relevance with regard to food waste. 1 kilogram of food has an average carbon footprint of 2.5 kilograms. And that, of course, has also a major impact when you look at this problem. So how are we going to face, are we going to cope with this problem? In our approach, predictive analytics provides an important insights and benefits for everyone in the community. And that also gives basically the two major angles from which we try to approach. One is, of course, a data-driven approach by taking data from the stakeholders' ERP and then optimizing through ML the supply. That goes into both directions, by the way, and this also can give a quite considerable economic benefit to the stakeholder. We're looking here primarily at food producers, but also at food retailers, because an optimization of supply doesn't necessarily only mean that you have an oversupply, which will lead eventually to food waste, but also, quite contrary, also undersupply is of course a target. That means lost revenue can also be targeted through this approach. We believe that the problem of food waste will only be solved by bringing all stakeholders together. That means stakeholders such as food producers, retailers, but also consumers. The analytics part, of course, helps to optimize the supply chain. On the other hand, it can also help to give a positive impact on the consumer by transferring this or transporting this this approach. How do we cope with food waste can also be given as a positive message to the consumer. Because just also to give you some brief numbers, in Germany alone, we have 18 million tons of food waste each year. Worldwide, we are at a level of about 2.5 billion. So that is an enormous amount. And of course, by just halving this amount would mean to make a huge impact, not only with regard to food security, but also with regard to the environmental impact that it has. So therefore, we also, of course, contribute to the SDGs, especially number 12 and 13, which means halving food waste by 50% until 2030, but also with regard to climate protection. Well, I think I've also given you enough idea what the global impact of this whole problem is. What kind of results have we so far achieved? The The company is now about 2 years old, so we are really at early stage still. We have some encouraging results already to present. One with a food retailer, namely a bakery in the Hamburg region. And we have, for certain articles in their whole product portfolio, tried to make an optimization, which, as you can see here, led to 50% reduction in product in food loss, basically, within 5 weeks. But also other effects were visible. For example, with regard to time savings in the planning process, and also cost savings in material and goods. A second case, a food producer, a company called Brüggen in the Lübeck area, producing mainly oats products. We had a challenge there in order to compare their system forecast approach with ours, and as you can see here, we have even beaten their systemic forecast, which of course is not only data driven but also includes items such as expert knowledge. So what can we say about Food 21? We try to combine the environmental impact plus reduction of food waste to also cope with the problem of hunger and malnutrition, but also try to contribute to an optimization on the economic side of each company that then will join, hopefully in the future, this approach. So just to summarize, AI plays an important role here, but it is not the only thing. And as you, Gunnar, have also written in your book, Fruchtiger, Frischer, Natürlicher, which is about fruit and also exotic fruits. It is not only that you take data and then put them into a machine and the outcome will be just can be just used. AI is, and I can only emphasize that again, is one tool, but it also requires a lot of domain knowledge in order to really know where to start and how to approach the problem. When you ask me whether you could create a platform, which is of course the goal here, you know, a standardized platform which can basically used by everyone, that was our primary target. We are now a bit more reluctant to say that, because especially when you cope with or when you deal with food producers, the complexity that you're dealing with is such that you also have to very much come up with individual solutions. So I see ourselves as a sort of hybrid between a platform plus an individual approach. Well, that's all for the time being, but I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Friedrich Rantzau, for your presentation of Food 21. And you also talked a lot about bringing people together, sharing information, making it more transparent. Petra Vorsteher and Stephen Monteiro, you want to add something? You have any questions?
As Friedrich knows, I believe that this is important for all of us, for every human being. This is such a big problem with food waste, and I was shocked when I heard that you can actually prevent 40% of things throwing away in a bakery alone. And these are bakeries that I know, that I shop in Hamburg. And when I heard the CEO in an interview talking about that, you know, yes, I mean, theoretically, you could take a sack of seeds that he orders in somewhere in the US or somewhere else, and it's being packed, it's being shipped, it arrives here in Hamburg, and theoretically, he could just throw it away. because 40% food waste, that is just unbelievable. And so this is also another a great example of taking on a huge problem in the world and finding as a startup a solution that will help a lot of people and that will help us. And I recently saw that the Tafel here in Hamburg, that's an organization that gives food to needy people, that actually they're running out of food in the supermarkets. There's not much left to get, so they are now going to farmers markets, etc., to get food. So if we can manage this and manage this through AI, this would be fantastic. So thank you, Friedrich, for this initiative.
Thank you.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Everything that we have heard. It was impressive to hear when Petra told us about, well, first of all, everybody is here of the speakers supporting a sustainable development. And everybody brought similar, but also different solutions on the table. Petra told us about how artificial intelligence can contribute and how startups have to rely on a transatlantic mindset. They have to think about not only where they start, but also where their markets are, and these might be somewhere else, and there might be partners in Texas, as we heard, or Seattle, or Ohio, or wherever. So this was very important. Stephen told us a lot about that we don't have just one goal. We have sustainability as a goal, but also democracy, freedom, and the good for the people. And I think that was inspiring, that we have a greater context to do the right thing. And then we had almost a logistical chain, because we had the energy, and an energy that is more and more renewable, presented by Daniel Lucht. And he told us how he is helping renewable energy to make their position in the market, energy that will be used by logistics. And Mirko Schädelbauer will give more transparency to allow renewable energy driven logistics take their place in the market, although they might not be on today's tables the cheapest ones, but they might be the more attractive ones for many partners in the logistical chain. And then we all know we need energy, we need logistics to get food on the table. And this was what Friedrich told us, Friedrich Ranzer of Food 21, who told us how data and information and artificial intelligence can help us reduce the waste of food and therefore increase the efficiency of all our contributions as a whole. So I'm left stunned, impressed, and very, very positively looking into the future. But maybe somebody of the speakers want to add something or make a personal statement, or maybe there's a question from the audience, because we still have 5 minutes, so we've been totally on schedule here. Anybody that has a question, we will read that in the comments and place it to the speakers. Today, data is food. Well, we can help with data to deliver more food and reduce waste. Yeah, please share your questions in the comments, please. Somebody wants to invest in Nash. So when will be your IPO there?
I don't know when the IPO will be, so that might take some time, but we're actually closing our first investment round now in May, which should bring us to summer 23. Yeah. And then depending on, let's say, how many, different opportunities we can see from, the core of what we're trying here, then we need to see if we need another round or not. And also how quickly can actually adapt the market to what we're doing, right? Because we're not somehow creating a solution for something which is there's already a solution for and make that better, but we actually want to change the solution. Renewable energy works, which could be a little bit time consuming in this sense. But yeah, if get in touch with me and we can talk about investment opportunities. For sure.
Very good. I think this is a situation where I would like to ask Petra a question, because we hear a lot about startups and when's your IPO and IPO, but financing a startup and growing it is more than just looking at the stock market and the IPO, the initial public offering. It is about finding partners who share your business perspective, right? And those might not just be in Germany, they might be in the United States, and they might be all over the world, right, Petra?
Yes, I mean, you always need partners on the business side, but also partners on the financing side. And ideally, you have an investor that understands your business, that has also a large network, because not only money is important, but also the connection and the business that an investor can bring you. And this is something that with the Startup Hub, with the AI Startup Hub, we take very seriously, because we have a large network of connections into corporates that could eventually bring business to the startup. And that is as important as the initial money, because after a round is before a round. As a startup, and I know that very well, you're constantly looking for money. That's kind of one of your other businesses besides running the business, but you're constantly looking for money. But again, this is just one part. The as important part is that you have a partner that also helps you with their experience and their network and their connection to corporate partners, so they bring you business.
Yeah, and this is so much about partners. It is also about money, but what else is money than something where people interact and communicate and share credit with each other, and business trends, business exchange and business cooperation is also helping societies grow, come together, come closer, and therefore the Atlantic might not be a divide, but something that like a waterway brings us together. Maybe Stephen Monteiro, you want to share your perspective, because you had somewhat a wider view on working together and a sustainable future here. Like final words for this meeting, and then we will meet again and help these projects. Please.
Absolutely. Well, honored. Thank you for the final word. Once again, I think I just want to reiterate how vital it is for Germany and the United States to really work on solutions that will help propel us into the sustainable future that I know both of our governments are aiming for as well. These innovations, these technologies, things that we've heard today, of course, are just part of the starting block. This has been something that's been going on for several decades now, where people have been trying to innovate to reduce our carbon emissions and trying to make or spread awareness of climate change in itself. And conversations like this, or presentations like this and events like this, of course, only spread that out. And I'm glad that it's also, arrived, if you will, in the business community, that these are things that you can, that can be profitable, that green energy and green business can be profitable. And as I mentioned before, something that can create new, stable, high-tech jobs for the people that will be, of course, inevitably displaced by our transition to renewable energies. So these are things that, our countries can definitely work forward to in the future. And I really want to thank you all again for participating and for hosting. I think it was a fantastic array of the possibilities of what falls under the sustainable umbrella. And I look forward to future cooperations, of course. And I know that we will work very closely with the AI Startup Hub going in the future, and I'm sure that we will be in contact. So thank you again very much, everybody, for being here. And here's to a greener, newer world.
Perfect. I have nothing to add but to thank you, Steve Monteiro, to thank you, Petra Vorsteher, to thank Friedrich Ranzau, Mirko Schädelbauer, and Daniel Lücht, and to thank Claudia and Zoe for supporting this event in preparation, communication, and invitations and so on. Thank you all. This has been a pleasure. We're absolutely in time. I like this. Thank you very much. Have a good day. The sun is shining in Hamburg.